For the most part, all the models were 10th scale. The fighters might have been 1/5 scale, something like that. We did F-15s, we did some Sukhois, I think it was. Sukhois or MiGs. We did the KC-10s, the tankers, and we did a C-130. Most of the C-130 was farmed out and done outside of our shop, but all the rest of it we did internally. And like the tankers, I think we had to build 3 tankers because after we used them for stage shooting, motion control, repeatable, we then used them for pyro elements at the end of the movie where we actually blew them all up. There might have been one that we didn't blow up, I'm not sure about that. But they were big, 10th scale. So I think the 747 was around 20 to 22 feet long. And originally we had done the 747 for turbulence.
And in fact, with Air Force One, once we got it, and I was basically stayed to paint the model because I was asked by Jein to join him on Titanic, I hung out and we didn't have any information on it. I even tried to get a color chip from Boeing where they actually painted the real thing. They sent us blueprints of the layout. They had no colored chips. Greg Jein knew a guy in London who had actual paint chip of the aircraft.
And having had that and having figured out how to shoot that on motion control, something that big would never work on the kind of pylons we normally had. Because there we might have a model that's 36 inches or even up to 5 feet, but nothing really big. So one of the things we had to come up with was a motion control rig that could move the ship.
Air Force One, we had a time where when it landed at LAX, we had a chance to go in and photograph it. Because I had told Dave Jones that now we got this beautifully painted model, and it really was an amazing job. I had a fellow who did car bodies come in and help me. The thing was that we got to go down to see it. And I was telling him, this plane's got to be weathered. He said, it's Air Force One, it's not dirty. It'll look like a model if we don't weather it. I mean, there's weathering, trust me. No. Let's go look at the real thing. And I'll show you, we have to do this. Okay, so we go down, and there is, an aircraft, just stuff falls out of the sky, being dirt, dust, right? In the morning, you get the condensation from the night before, and as the day comes up and the sun comes up, the condensation starts to cool and runs down, and you get streaks. So the one thing that I've done most of my life is I'm very oriented to looking at details. I see details in everything, especially weathering, because I'm trying to recreate weathering. And it needs to look right, so from every window there was dirt in little thin lines. Yeah, they washed the thing, but there's still dirt. And Dave saw it and went, God damn, you're right. So I carefully airbrushed the weathering, and Dave went, it's perfect. And when we filmed it, it looked real. And R2-D2 was on everything, especially the ones that blew up. Edlin had at Boss, had a computer department, and they were doing a lot, and I became sort of the unofficial liaison between the model shop and them. So they often call me over and say, here's our computer model of an F-15. Is it correct? And I would look and say, well, see that gray you got there? That's actually metal, and that insignia, it's too big, small. And so they would correct it from what I was telling them, because this is what the model looks like. And so I went over and I did that with them.
Doing things as a computer-generated imagery became the sexy thing to do in Hollywood. A producer, if given the choice of building a model and getting a camera crew to shoot it and all of that, versus having this really neat toy called CGI, they would opt for the CGI all the time because it was new, it was sexy, and they got to participate in that.
Have the aircraft crash at the end, and there was an argument about model or CGI. Well, the CGI people talked Edlin into it. We basically thought from the model shop, let's build an Air Force One that were going to crash into the ocean. And he says, quarter scale is kind of what you need to do something with water or fire. Well, the CGI people talking about it, right? And when we crashed our 747, the Air Force One, and it was a CGI crash, it was like, now we're into a cartoon.
Some of these things would be better to shoot it as a model and have the model there, and when it blew up, some neat things would come out that were way better than you could ever do in CGI. Plus, back when we did Air Force One, water and fire were two things that still weren't there yet. They weren't just right. And it was better to shoot miniatures of it and then do fire elements or splash elements in different scales and add those to the shot instead of doing it all in CG.